Did you know there is a place on Earth known as the Gate to Hell, a crater that has been burning non-stop for over 50 years? Or that there is a spot on the planet where so many lightning strikes occur that the night seems like day due to the intense illumination, and that there exists a waterfall as red as blood flowing from Antarctic ice as if the glacier itself were bleeding endlessly? Our planet harbors places that push conditions to the absolute limit, corners that seem from another world where nature defies everything we believe possible. Today you will discover 35 geographic facts about the most extreme places on Earth, real scenarios that reveal how far the impossible can reach. Let's start with number 35, the village where the sun doesn't set for 4 months. In Longyearbyen, the northernmost permanent settlement on the planet with over 1,000 inhabitants, the sun does not dip below the horizon from late April until late August. But what is truly extreme is not just the midnight sun, but its counterpart. From late October until mid-February, the polar night plunges the town into almost total darkness for more than 100 consecutive days. During this period, the sun does not rise even for a single minute, and the only natural illumination comes from the moon, the northern lights, and the blue reflection of Arctic ice. This radical light oscillation has measurable effects on the psychology and biological rhythm of its roughly 2,000 inhabitants. Authorities even regulate weapon use. Upon leaving the urban area, carrying a rifle is mandatory due to the presence of polar bears that outnumber people on the archipelago. Furthermore, the town houses the global seed vault dug into a nearby mountain designed to withstand nuclear wars and permafrost thawing. In few places worldwide does geography so absolutely condition daily life. At 34, the most isolated inhabited point on the planet. In the middle of the South Atlantic lies Edinburgh of the Seven Seas, the only town on the British archipelago of Tristan da Cunha. It is over 2,400 kilometers from the nearest coast in South Africa, making it the most remote permanent human settlement globally. There is no airport. The only connection is a boat that can take nearly a week to arrive from Cape Town and operates just a few times per year. What's striking is that the entire community, fewer than 300 people, descends from just a handful of 19th century original settlers. This has created a genetic concentration so particular that certain surnames dominate almost the entire island. In 1961, a volcanic eruption forced a complete evacuation to the United Kingdom, but most residents chose to return 2 years later to their active volcano, preferring extreme isolation over urban life. Geographically speaking, it is the perfect example of how distance can become identity. Before continuing, make sure to subscribe and leave a like to keep 33. The road that crosses the coldest inhabited place. In the remote town of Oymyakon in eastern Siberia, an official temperature of minus 67.7 degrees Celsius was recorded in 1933, considered one of the lowest ever measured in a permanently inhabited place. But the lesser-known detail is that the ground remains so frozen that bodies cannot be buried without first lighting bonfires for hours to soften the permafrost. Daily life depends on engines running constantly so vehicles don't become useless blocks of ice. The only major access road is called the Road of Bones, built partly with forced labor during the Stalinist era. Beneath the asphalt and gravel lie thousands of prisoners who died during its construction. In winter, breath freezes in the air, forming visible crystals, and eyelashes can stick together from the ice. Here, cold is not a season. It is a permanent geographic condition shaping every aspect of existence. 32. The desert drier than imagination. In the heart of the Atacama Desert near the city of Calama, there is a zone where no measurable rainfall was recorded for over 400 years, according to paleoclimatic studies. Some areas have soil so dry it chemically resembles that of Mars, which is why NASA has tested instruments there intended for space missions. Some weather stations have recorded entire decades without a single drop of rain. What is truly extreme is that despite this absolute dryness, beneath the surface there are aquifers and microorganisms surviving in extreme conditions. On rare dawns, a coastal fog called Camanchaca provides the only moisture available, allowing endemic species to bloom almost miraculously. It is a place where life clings to minute fractions of water, defying what we understand as habitable. 31. The island that disappears and reappears in Japan. In the Japanese archipelago, the small island of Aoshima is known for its disproportionate population of cats, vastly outnumbering humans. However, the extreme aspect is not just the feline proportion, but its geographic vulnerability. Barely a few hundred meters long and lacking significant infrastructure, it relies entirely on a ferry that can be canceled for days due to bad weather. The extreme aging of its human population, much higher than the national average, has brought the island to the brink of total abandonment. If the last residents leave, Aoshima could become one of the few places on Earth where an introduced species dominates territory without permanent human presence. It is a microcosm where island geography and isolation have inverted the usual hierarchy between humans and animals. 30. The lake that can turn animals to stone. In northern Tanzania lies Lake Natron, whose waters can reach a pH above 10.5 due to a high concentration of sodium carbonate and other volcanic minerals from nearby Ol-Doinyo Lengai. This extreme alkalinity can calcify animals that die in its waters, preserving them in almost sculptural postures. Still, the lake is the primary breeding ground for millions of lesser flamingos, which have developed unique adaptations to survive in this corrosive environment. Their specialized legs and skin resist the lethal chemistry that would be instantly fatal to other organisms. It is a brutal example of how a chemically extreme environment can simultaneously be a specialized ecological sanctuary. 29. The city sinking faster than Venice. Although Venice is famous for sinking, parts of Jakarta are subsiding at a much faster rate, with some areas having sunk more than 25 centimeters per year in recent decades. Massive groundwater extraction has caused entire neighborhoods to now lie several meters below sea level. In the city's north, some districts already rely on massive dikes to avoid permanent flooding. The situation is so critical that the Indonesian government has initiated construction of a new capital on the island of Borneo. Jakarta faces not only global sea level rise, but also its own geological collapse induced by human activity, making it one of the planet's most extreme urban experiments. 28. The deepest place in the ocean. In the western Pacific Ocean, the Mariana Trench holds the deepest known point of Earth's crust, the Challenger Deep, reaching nearly 11,000 meters below sea level. The pressure at the bottom exceeds 1,000 times atmospheric pressure at sea level, enough to crush a conventional submarine like a tin can. Despite these conditions, life forms adapted to total darkness and near-freezing temperatures have been found. In 2012, filmmaker James Cameron descended alone to the bottom in a specially designed capsule. Down there, in the Hadal Zone, geography ceases to seem terrestrial and becomes an alien world hidden under kilometers of water. 27. The volcano that burns without going out. At the Darvaza crater in Turkmenistan, there is a fire burning continuously since 1971. Known as the Gate to Hell, this enormous crater originated when a Soviet drilling collapsed into a natural gas cavern. To prevent the release of toxic methane, engineers decided to ignite it, thinking it would extinguish in a few days. More than 5 decades later, flames still consume the underground gas. At night, the orange glow illuminates the Karakum Desert, creating a nearly apocalyptic landscape. It is one of the few places where a geological industrial accident turned into a permanent fiery phenomenon visible from kilometers away. 26. The airport where landing is a gamble. On the Caribbean island of St. Martin, Princess Juliana International Airport has one of the lowest approaches in the world. Commercial planes pass mere meters above Maho Beach before touching down, generating gusts powerful enough to throw people meters backward. The runway is relatively short for large aircraft, forcing pilots to execute extremely precise maneuvers over the sea. Each landing becomes a public spectacle where tourists cling to fences to feel the force of jet engines. Here, island geography and lack of space transformed an airport into one of the most extreme and risky points for commercial aviation. 25. The river that boils in the jungle. In the heart of the Peruvian Amazon, near the city of Pucallpa, there is a tributary called Shanay Timpishka, whose waters can reach temperatures up to 86 degrees Celsius. For centuries, it was considered an indigenous legend until scientific studies confirmed that in certain stretches, the heat is enough to kill small animals falling accidentally into the water. The striking thing is, it isn't located near any active volcano, something that would normally explain such a geothermal phenomenon. The heat comes from deep geological faults, allowing underground water to rise at extreme temperatures before emerging at the surface. In some areas, vapor constantly rises over the jungle, creating a thick and ghostly microclimate. It is one of the few rivers on the planet where the danger is not the current or predators, but literally the boiling water in the middle of the forest. 24. The city built over a toxic lake. Mexico City was built atop the remnants of the ancient Lake Texcoco. The extreme factor is not only its lacustrine origin, but that the soft, saturated ground causes some areas to sink more than 40 centimeters per year. The Metropolitan Cathedral, for example, had to be stabilized after visibly leaning due to differential ground collapse. The problem worsens because the city extracts huge amounts of groundwater, accelerating the sinking. Beneath the asphalt lie clay layers acting like giant sponges slowly compressing. It is a megacity of over 20 million people literally settled over unstable sediments that were once lakebed, making it one of the geologically most fragile urban centers globally. 23. The natural border separating two oceans. At Chile's southern tip, Cape Horn marks the point where the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans meet with legendary violence. Currents, winds, and the absence of continental barriers allow waves to easily exceed 10 meters high. For centuries, it was considered the most dangerous maritime passage on Earth. Before the Panama Canal opened, thousands of sailors risked their lives crossing these icy waters. The extreme aspect is that even today, sailing there means facing one of the world's most unpredictable climates, where thunderstorms, hurricane-force gusts, and cross seas can coexist within hours. It is a natural geographic border that has defined trade routes and maritime tragedies for generations. 22. The place where Earth is splitting in two. In Ethiopia's Afar region, the Dalal Desert lies in one of the planet's most tectonically active zones. 3 continental plates converge there, slowly separating and creating visible cracks on the surface. In 2005, a fissure over 50 kilometers long suddenly opened in the ground, signaling that the African continent is fragmenting. Besides its tectonic activity, Dalal boasts some of the highest average annual temperatures ever recorded in an inhabited place, surpassing 34 degrees Celsius year-round. Its acidic pools of fluorescent colors contain high concentrations of salt and sulfur, making the landscape seem otherworldly. It is literally a window into Earth's geological future. 21. The glacier that advances instead of retreating. While most of the world's glaciers are shrinking, the Perito Moreno Glacier in Los Glaciares National Park exhibits an almost exceptional behavior. Located in Argentine Patagonia, this ice giant not only does not retreat significantly, but advances cyclically to block the Rico arm of Lake Argentino. When water pressure builds too high, the ice collapses in a breathtaking natural spectacle, forming arches that ultimately crash down with thundering sounds audible kilometers away. This dynamic equilibrium makes it a glaciological rarity in a global context of accelerated melting. It is one of the few places where ice still defies the dominant warming trend. 20. The most inaccessible island on the planet. In the middle of the South Atlantic lies Bouvet Island, a Norwegian dependency considered the most remote island in the world. It is almost entirely covered with ice and has no permanent population. Its coast is so rugged that landing is extremely difficult even in favorable conditions. The most baffling fact is that in 1964, a lifeboat was found there abandoned with no trace of its occupants, a mystery never solved. Geographically isolated by thousands of kilometers of open ocean, Bouvet represents the extreme of terrestrial isolation, a piece of icy volcanic rock lost in one of the planet's most inhospitable seas. 19. The lowest point on dry land. On the shores of the Dead Sea between Israel and Jordan is the lowest point of Earth's exposed surface, more than 430 meters below sea level. The water's salinity is so high it exceeds ocean salinity by nearly tenfold, enabling effortless floating. But the extreme factor is not just the negative altitude. Water levels are rapidly dropping due to river diversion. This has caused enormous sinkholes to open suddenly along the shores, swallowing roads and palm trees. It is a landscape not only at the planet's lowest elevation, but one undergoing dramatic changes. 18. The forest that breathes fire underground. In Pennsylvania, the town of Centralia has been burning underground since 1962 due to a coal mine fire that never could be extinguished. Although most residents evacuated, the fire remains active and could continue for centuries. The ground emits toxic gases and steam through cracks crossing roads and abandoned gardens. Underground temperatures are so high that some zones become unstable. Centralia has become an extreme example of how human alteration can permanently transform a geographic environment, turning a city into a smoking ghost landscape. 17. The lake that disappears every winter. In Slovenia, Lake Srnica is one of Europe's largest intermittent lakes. During the rainy season, it can expand to cover over 30 square kilometers, but in summer it can nearly completely drain through a complex system of underground karst caves. This phenomenon occurs because the limestone terrain is perforated by natural tunnels that act as giant drains. The result is a landscape that alternates between a navigable lake and dry meadow within months. It is a reminder that even something seemingly stable like a lake can be temporary in certain geological contexts. 16. The windiest inhabited place on Earth. In East Antarctica, Commonwealth Bay Research Station is known for recording some of the strongest winds ever measured on Earth's surface. Katabatic gusts can regularly exceed 240 kilometers per hour, driven by cold, dense air descending from the continent's interior. These conditions make maintaining infrastructure an extreme challenge. Buildings must be designed to withstand forces comparable to prolonged hurricanes. It is an environment where wind is not occasional but a permanent feature that defines the landscape and limits human presence to minimal scientific activity. 15. The tallest mountain measured from its true base. Although Mount Everest is the highest above sea level, Mauna Kea volcano in Hawaii surpasses it if measured from its true base on the Pacific Ocean floor. From seabed to summit, Mauna Kea reaches over 10,200 meters total height, making it the planet's tallest mountain in absolute terms. Yet more than half remains hidden underwater, changing our perception of what the tallest mountain really means. The extreme doesn't end there. Its summit, nearly 4,200 meters above sea level, can be snow-covered in the tropics while its underwater base lies in abyssal darkness. Moreover, Mauna Kea's colossal weight literally deforms the Earth's crust beneath it, sinking the island thousands of meters. It is a giant that not only rises skyward but also pushes Earth down purely by mass. 14. The place where it has never officially rained. In the McMurdo dry valleys of Antarctica, there are areas where no significant rainfall has been recorded for almost 2 million years. These valleys, shielded by mountains blocking moisture and swept by intense katabatic winds, maintain a landscape so arid that snow falling nearby sublimates before settling. It is one of the most Mars-like environments on the planet. What's striking is that despite these conditions, hypersaline subglacial lakes have been found beneath the ice, remaining liquid even at extreme sub-zero temperatures. In some spots, oxidized iron stains the ice red, creating waterfalls that look like frozen blood. It is such an isolated and extreme ecosystem that scientists study it as a model for understanding how microscopic life might exist on other worlds. 13. The village living above 5,000 meters altitude. In Peru's Andean region lies La Rinconada, considered the highest permanent human settlement worldwide, situated over 5,100 meters above sea level. At that altitude, oxygen concentration is roughly half that at sea level, making even simple tasks like walking a few meters breath-catching for the unadapted. Yet thousands live there, drawn by gold mining, under extremely precarious conditions, without formal sewage systems and with temperatures often plunging below zero. The human body must produce more red blood cells to compensate for oxygen lack, increasing cardiovascular risk. It is a place where daily survival means facing constant hypoxia at Earth's habitable roof. 12. The deepest cave ever explored. In the Arabica Massif in Abkhazia is Veryovkina Cave, descending more than 2,200 meters underground, the deepest known cave in the world. To reach its lowest point, speleologists must descend for days through narrow passages, vertical shafts, and flooded siphons in an environment of absolute darkness and temperatures just above zero. At the bottom, microscopic life adapted to pressure and total lack of sunlight has been found alongside subterranean lakes isolated for millennia. Each expedition requires logistics comparable to a polar mission with underground camps installed over a kilometer deep. It is a literal descent into Earth's entrails where the surface world ceases to exist. 11. The point where 4 countries meet in one corner. In southern Africa, there is an almost surreal geographic point called the Kazungula Quadripoint, where the borders of Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, and Namibia meet within a very small area along the Zambezi River. For decades, there was debate over whether all 4 countries shared a single exact point or if small strips prevented this, causing diplomatic disputes and contradictory maps. Today, an international bridge crosses that narrow river strip connecting Zambia and Botswana at a spot where just meters away begin 2 other sovereignties. It is a place where the political abstraction of borders materializes in just a few square meters, proving that geography defines not only natural extremes but also human boundaries concentrated in an almost invisible map corner. Remember to subscribe and leave your like to keep learning incredible facts about every corner of our extraordinary world. 10. The best preserved impact crater on the planet. In the United States desert of Arizona lies Meteor Crater, an almost perfect scar 1.2 kilometers in diameter caused by a meteorite impact about 50,000 years ago. The impressive fact is that the crater is so well preserved it looks recent, although it happened when humans were just starting to expand across the American continent. The meteorite traveled over 40,000 kilometers per hour and released energy equivalent to several modern nuclear bombs. Unlike other craters eroded over time, the dryness of the environment kept its edges sharply defined. The internal walls showed geological layers exposed like pages torn from Earth's history. It was so useful scientifically that it served as a training ground for Apollo astronauts who practiced exploration techniques there before traveling to the moon. It is one of the few places where one can clearly contemplate the cosmic violence still threatening our planet. 9. The sea that creates ghost clouds in the desert. On Namibia's coast, the Namib Desert meets the Atlantic in such an extreme phenomenon that it generates dense fog banks amid scorching dunes. This fog, caused by the cold Benguela Current, moves inland, forming what sailors called for centuries the skeleton coast, where countless ships ran aground unable to navigate the haze. Remarkably, this fog is the main water source for many desert organisms. Specialized beetles climb dune tops at dawn and orient their bodies to condense microdroplets on their shells, which then slide down to their mouths. It is an ecosystem where the ocean provides not rain but vapor, and survival depends on capturing moisture suspended in the air. 8. The driest inhabited point in Europe. In southeastern Spain, within Almeria province, lies the Tabernas Desert, considered the only true desert in continental Europe. There, annual rainfall can drop below 250 millimeters, creating an arid landscape that served as a setting for numerous classic Western films. What is striking is not only the lack of rain, but the extreme erosion sculpting badlands and dry canyons resembling those in the American Southwest. Occasional torrential rains can turn a dry creek into a raging flood within minutes, creating a brutal contrast between prolonged drought and sudden surges. It is a European corner where climate shatters the green image many associate with the continent. 7. The highest waterfall in the world. In the heart of Venezuela, within Canaima National Park, Angel Falls drops from a total height of 979 meters. The extreme aspect is that the main free fall exceeds 800 meters, causing much of the water to atomize before reaching the ground, forming a floating mist visible from kilometers away. The falls originate atop a tepuy, table mountains with vertical walls that are some of the oldest geological formations on Earth. During dry seasons, flow can drastically decrease, making the waterfall seem to vanish in midair. It is a spectacle where verticality is so extreme water literally turns to mist before completing its descent. 6. The most active volcano in Europe. On Italy's Sicilian island stands Mount Etna, one of the world's most active volcanoes. With eruptions frequently documented since classical antiquity, its activity is so constant it periodically changes its own height through lava accumulation and partial collapses. Surprisingly, despite this continuous risk, thousands live on its slopes benefiting from extremely fertile soils generated by volcanic ash. In winter, it is possible to ski its snow-covered sides while smoke columns rise from the crater. It is an extreme example of human coexistence with an unpredictable geological force shaping the landscape for millennia. 5. The largest desert in the world is ice. Although many think of sand dunes when they hear desert, the largest on Earth is Antarctica, technically a polar desert because it receives less annual precipitation than the Sahara in wide interior areas. In parts of the Antarctic plateau, snow accumulation is equivalent to only a few centimeters of water per year. What is extreme is that ice thickness can exceed 4 kilometers, storing nearly 70% of the planet's fresh water. Beneath that colossal mass lie mountains, lakes, and entire ranges buried. It is a silent desert where cold and dryness are so intense that even bacteria struggle to survive. 4. The hottest point ever recorded on Earth. In the Death Valley within the United States, a temperature of 56.7 degrees Celsius was recorded in 1913 at Furnace Creek. Long considered the highest officially measured on the planet, the combination of below sea level elevation, dry air, and mountains trapping heat creates a true natural oven. The ground can reach temperatures much higher than the air, enough to cause severe burns with prolonged contact. In summer, the landscape seems to vibrate under constant mirages. It is a place where heat not only discomforts but quickly becomes a lethal threat to anyone underestimating its intensity. 3. The smallest inhabited island in the world. In New York State, on the St. Lawrence River, lies Just Room Enough Island, considered the smallest inhabited island globally. It has barely enough space for a house, a tree, and a small outdoor area, completely surrounded by water within meters. When river levels rise, the terrain can partially flood, making the house appear to float. The extreme factor here is not climate or altitude, but scale. It is a demonstration of how far the definition of inhabited island can be reduced to an absolute minimum. 2. The rainiest place on the planet. In the Indian state of Meghalaya lies Mawsynram, recognized as the place with the highest average annual precipitation worldwide. There, more than 11,000 millimeters of rain can fall per year, mainly during the monsoon when moisture-laden clouds collide with the Khasi Hills. Homes are adapted with sloping roofs and reinforced structures to withstand practically constant rain for months. Roads can become torrents within hours. It is an environment where the dominant sound much of the year is the incessant impact of rain on ground and rooftops. 1. The deepest accessible point on land surface. On the Dead Sea's shore, specifically on its Jordanian bank, lies the lowest accessible land point without submerging in the ocean, more than 430 meters below sea level. This depression is part of the Great Rift Valley, a tectonic fracture crossing the Middle East and East Africa. What is striking is that salinity is so extreme almost no macroscopic life exists in its waters, and the air, denser due to added pressure, contains a slightly higher oxygen concentration than higher areas. It is a place where the gravity of geography is literally felt. You are at the lowest point reachable without leaving dry surface ground on the planet. After learning these 35 extreme geographic facts about our planet, tell us, which did you find the most striking? Leave your answer in the comments and let's see how many choose the same. And speaking of choosing, the best thing you can do is watch the video I leave on screen. Together, we will become true geography experts and always have facts to share. But before you go, don't forget to subscribe and hit like so we can keep learning together. See you in the video.